Okay, so we have started recording, so I'd like to call this meeting to order at 11:40. Welcome everyone to the Modesto Chamber of Commerce Government Relations Council meeting for the month of March. My name is Michael Gaffney. I'm the chairman of the board and division operations specialist with PG&E. I am facilitating this meeting in the absence of John Valines, who had conflicting meetings on his calendar on the front end and the back end, and he did not want that to be a distraction for all of you. So here I am. If anyone has had a chance to read the meeting minutes from last month's meeting, I would like to entertain a motion to approve those. They would have been attached to the board packet on the calendar invitation.
I'll move.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
So Pete and Dana, perfect. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carried. I would like to take a moment to do introductions before we get into report outs. I've introduced myself to my right. Maybe we sort of go counterclockwise, and then we can introduce the folks on the Zoom.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. Ignore Sabrina. Sorry, we're trying to navigate the computer right now. Sabrina Fuel is in the room with us, membership coordinator, and we'll go to Stephen.
Stephen Walls, Regional Program Manager for League Conference.
Donna Linder, County Court Registrar.
Dana
Ferreira, Regulatory Analyst of Modesto Irrigation District.
And then do you want to go down the list of attendees on the roster there?
Sure. Pete, how about you?
Howdy, Pete Butler with the National Electrical Contractors Association.
Thank you. Lisa? Come back to her. Jorge, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. Jorge Barrera with the City of Modesto.
Thank you. Brianna?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna Gonzalez from Congressman Harder's office.
Thank you. And Lisa, we'll go back to you. Could you introduce yourself, Lisa?
Sorry about that. I had the Series Chamber calling me on my other phone line here. Lisa Mantero Moore, Assembly Member Adam Gray's office.
Thank you. And in the room, just joined us, Peggy, could you introduce yourself?
Peggy O'Donnell, with retired on the Chamber Board.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is that everybody? Okay, so we will move into elected official report outs, starting with Brianna with Congressman Harder's office.
Thank you, guys. So as you all are aware, a lot has happened in the world since our last GRC meeting, and top of mind is the war on Ukraine. But we're all deeply saddened and concerned by what's going on. The government has taken some steps to mitigate the crisis. Last week, Representative Harder did vote to pass the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2022, which will provide $13.6 billion of humanitarian and military assistance to Ukraine, and also fund the U.S. government through the end of 2022. So this package will support, food and supply deliveries to Ukraine civilians, defense assistance to the Ukrainian armed forces, and will help bolster the nation's energy grid and cyber defenses, among other critical programs. I heard you guys talking about Josh Whitfield earlier, and he is just absolutely amazing. So we send him the best of luck. And we also really hope to see an end to this soon. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch gears. Just wanted to mention that really quickly. I am happy to inform that, we did get $35 million from the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act to fund some levee projects to reduce flood risk in San Joaquin County. So Representative Harder helped negotiate that law. And let's see, this project is part of the 10-year Lower San Joaquin Flood Control Plan, which will protect the residents of like Manteca, Lathrop, and the greater Stockton area from flooding. And this is a big issue in that part of our district. When complete, this 23-mile project will benefit more than 160,000 residents of San Joaquin County and protect more than 28.7 billion in property. The Army Corps of Engineers also estimates that the project will generate over 300 million in benefits each year, including a potential reduction in national flood insurance program costs for the homeowners. So that's great. As you might be aware, we are seeing more and more methamphetamine and fentanyl on our streets than ever before. The largest meth bust in the U.S. History actually occurred last year in California, like I think by down the San Diego area. The issue of drug trafficking in the Central Valley, though, is obviously a major priority for Congressman Harder. And he recently sent a letter to the director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy, urging him and the Biden administration to increase financial support for local police and sheriff's departments in the fight against methamphetamine and fentanyl. So Representative Harder's letter urged the office to create a national plan to fight meth trafficking and increase funding to the Central Valley, California high-intensity drug trafficking area. Yes, so he also backed 3 bipartisan bills this month that will fund Central Valley police departments and address the drug epidemic. So the 3 bills will designate methamphetamine as an emerging drug threat and direct the federal government to implement a response plan. Also add new warning labels to prescription opioids and also increase funding for small police departments to recruit and retain high quality officers. So just for your awareness, the name of those 3 bills are the Methamphetamine Response Act of 2021, Label Opioids Act, and Invest to Protect Act of 2022. And lastly, I just want to mention that Congressman Harder received the 2022 Distinguished Community Health Advocate Award from the National Association of Community Health Centers. This award recognizes members of Congress who have worked on expanding affordable and accessible healthcare to their constituents. So that's it's a short and sweet update this month, but thanks all for listening.
Appreciate that, Brianna. Any questions for Congressman Harder's office? Hearing and seeing none, we will move into Assembly Member Adam Gray's office with Lisa.
Good morning, everybody. You're correct, Brianna, when you said the amount of things that have occurred since our last meeting is numerous, and that's across the board. So without me providing a choppy report, I'm going to have to email it to the chamber with some more of our direct updates on some legislation. So it's more specific. Otherwise, I'll be shooting from the hip today, and it will not be easy to follow. So thank you, guys.
No problem, Lisa, understood. And we will distribute that to the list of attendees. Anybody from Assembly Member Heath Floor's office? I did not notice anyone. I will mark absent.
He's in Ukraine. He's
Got it.
excused.
Anyone from the city of Modesto who would like to provide an update on the city and or any council members? Anybody? Jorge? Okay. Okay.
You're seeing everyone.
Anyone? Oh, that's everyone. Okay. And I don't see anybody from from Stanislaus County. Shall we end with Dana and MID?
All's good.
Anything? Okay. All is well.
Need rain.
Holy
All
cow,
is well. We need rain and water. Same with PG&E. Nothing earth shattering to report. AT&T, Comcast. Okay. Stephen, League of California Cities report.
I think we have that open. Let me get that. It's not there. You just emailed it. Oh, wait. Oh, actually, called them. In a second. Can you tell me about that one? Second. Sorry, Stephen.
want me to run through it? Just send it out.
I'll catch, yeah. Yep, and I'll catch you up.
Okay, so I'm not gonna be as nice as Lisa was. Like, give you a rundown of some of the bills that we've been addressing since the legislation last dated to for the bills to be dropped was February 18th. And so what I've got some bills for you that we affect the cities and the businesses. So there's AB 1001. What this is going to do is the first time it's going to put environmental justice considerations into CEQA. It's a bill that Cal Chamber is opposing. And pretty much what this says is there's a development, either be residential or whether it be residential or commercial development in one jurisdiction, if it were to affect another jurisdiction as a quality, something like that, then mitigation would be have to be in program. It's a Cal Chamber job killer, and so it's not unnecessary restriction of development in California. SB 897. So as you know, a couple years ago, the state authorized ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units, and what they would is somebody can put a living space in their building, in their backyard, or they can turn their attics and garages into additional living spaces. Was done to address a housing shortage. But we have a lot of concerns with the safety issues as far as setbacks. So what this is saying that a local government would have to allow an ADU to be constructed up to a height of 25 feet. It's currently 16 feet, which means that in your backyard, your neighbor could build a structure up to 25 feet, which would mean they'd be living into your backyard. AB 1067 and 2097, this is like ones in the past, which is going to say that no minimum parking requirements can be set for developments that are within a half mile of public transit and other areas. The author still believes that developers will build those parking spots because people don't want to live somewhere where they can't park. But this, according to this law, they will not be able to be forced to by the city. They would still be able to require electric vehicle charging stations and also ADA parking. 2117. So what this would say that the city had not met its RENA numbers, which are the allocated numbers that are given to each county and distributed to the cities. The numbers of housing for low, very low, moderate income housing, and if they had not built those houses, not planned for currently, cities are required to plan for those, sell aside land for that. But the cities did not plan for that, and the city cannot collect the fees for 20 years. This obviously is going to be a problem because it's outside of housing crisis when the developments went dark and they were not. If other developers pick up those developments, we don't know if those fees are collected from the money put out by the city. There's been a number of bills looking to modify Prop 47. All three of them have been failed in the Assembly Public Safety Committee, but they have been given reconsideration. The chair of the Assembly Committee says he wants to improve Prop 47, but over 50% of the California residents believe there's something needs to be done. AB 1603. Oh, sorry, that's what I was doing. So AB 1445. This has to do with the housing needs allocation again. So starting in 2025, the COGS, which distribute the numbers, would have to consider natural disaster areas such as high fire zone, flooding we talked about earlier. And so what that means about those housing in the city of Modesto, we're getting a certain number of houses they had to build. Those houses, it could not be built in a certain area because of possible flooding. You got to be put in another area in Modesto or distributed to other jurisdictions inside the county. AB 1944, this follows up on AB 361, which said that cities and elected boards and appointed boards can continue to meet virtually. So what this bill does is it changes the Brown Act to say that they would no longer have to agendize where the location of the board member or elected official was meeting from. But currently, if somebody that is on a city council and they wanted to attend the meeting remotely, they have to publicize where they're at. And that could either be their home residence or something. This would actually change. Again, the Brown Act would not have to do so. AB 1985. So as you may know, SB 1383 is the bill that was passed to divert organic waste from our landfills. This is why there's a large increase in disposal rates lately for residential and business customers. So what this is saying, okay, when the cities do this, they are required by law to buy back the organic materials that are made from the converted organic waste, such as mulch. And this would create a data bank, so businesses in the city or counties can go to find out where they can buy those products. So state water and waterways program. So MIT, I'm sure other water providers there's a law passed that cities cannot, water providers cannot turn off service into delinquent customers. Some cities and water districts have already begun doing that. These are programs that cities and water distributors or providers can use to get back to be reimbursed for past due billing. SB 1038, this would prohibit the use of biometric surveillance systems indefinitely. For public safety, AB 1715 by Senator Gray would remove the requirement that the person is acting in concert with another one when doing retail theft and have the intent to sell or exchange and return merchandise. AB 2062, this would give law enforcement $50 million from the budget to provide grants to local law enforcement agencies to try to retain officers, to incentivize them to work in underserved communities and also to live in those communities. AB 2398, Cali converters. So this would make it illegal to have a Cali converter unless you prove it belongs to you. SB 1186. So this would say the city could not set regulations such as distances from school, number of medical marijuana dispensaries, and other items that were they were allowed to do so in the Prop 64. SB 1326. So this allowed the governor to look into signing agreements with nearby states to be able to sell or purchase products from other states, cannabis products. SB 1281. So this will skip over that one. And try to go through this quickly for y'all. So SB 1393. So as you know, recently there's a law passed by the state that all new state buildings have to be completely electrified. They cannot have any natural gas connections. And with that, knowing that happened, they're probably eventually looking at the same requirement, the residential development. But this one said that if somebody wanted to do a remodel, they wanted to replace the fossil fuel fired appliance with electric appliance, then they would have to, the developer or the resident would have to go to the city, and the city would have to go to the state to get a permit to do so. That's it. That's where to answer your question.
Any questions for Stephen?
Please, if you want to look that over, I know I went through it quickly, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Excellent. And if you are looking for any support, you know that you can email those requests to John Blinds and Trish.
Thank you very much.
Before we get into our special report, I noticed that Councilmember Chris Rickey joined us during Stephen's report. Councilman, would you like to give us any updates on your district or the city of Modesto?
I do have one quick update for you, and thank you for having me. I just was notified today by the state that we have qualified for a $5 million grant for job training that came through this week. So it's a really big, awesome thing that the city's doing through the county, and I know Ceres is involved too. It'll come and have full confirmation next week but it's coming and it's going to be really good. We're going to be working with someone that you guys introduced me to. Phil Land is a huge part of this grant. And he worked, we found out about this grant really late. And so I got with him on a Friday and he stayed up for 48 hours straight to fill it out. And it's just really exciting and awesome. And it just shows what happens when we all work together. It's really good things. So it's really, really exciting. And I want to thank you guys for connecting me to Phil.
Hey, you're welcome.
Excellent news. Thank you for sharing. Any questions? Okay, we will move into special report. Our guest speaker today is Donna Linder. When I was pulling up old meeting minutes to find a template, since I haven't facilitated these meetings in quite some time, I stumbled across the last time she joined us, and it was October of 2020. and it was late in the election season at that point. So our thought was to have you in much, much sooner. So we wouldn't find ourselves falling behind the 8 ball in the important work that we do to facilitate interviews and publish those in our Progress magazine, so members of the community can familiarize themselves with who's running for different positions within the county and the city. So without further ado, please welcome Donna Linder, Stanislaus County Clerk Recorder and Registrar of Voters.
Thank you. Can we have you scoot in closer to the screen for me, please? There you go. I can zoom on you a little bit.
Stay here. I fidget.
You can
No,
move
you
around
can
as
move
much as you
around.
want.
Yeah, you can move around. I just want to get a spot.
She will say this.
Yeah, present in front of the
So the microphone
Train
is in
station
this
there.
device, so you're kind
Okay.
of talking this way.
So if I look that way, then.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm the Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters. And it is right at the beginning of the election process. And what I wanted to tell you, some new laws that are taking effect and how we're going to process those laws. If you want to see a list of candidates, your local candidates, you can find on our website. They're all there. It says qualified next to their name. Those are the ones that you'll see on your ballot. As far as your state offices, that certified list will come from the Secretary of State, and they have until March 31st. So they send us updates all the time, but it's not finalized. So you can see the candidates that filed in our office or your, congressional, Senate, and Assembly seats, but it's not your final list. It's only the people that came in and saw us. So right now we are working on putting together the voter information guide, but as far as the ballot, we cannot finish until March. So it's really early in the process. Candidate filing ended just last week, actually, because one of the offices extended. So it ended Wednesday. So some of the laws that have taken effect in this last year, advance one.
I do.
We want you, but the computer won't work. So we had a couple laws that changed some things, and these don't affect people as much as the last law, but if there's a vacancy in the US Senate, historically the governor is always appointed. Now it says that needs to go as a special election on a state primary or a general. If there's no election coming up, then they'll work together to see if a special election is practical. Candidates running for governor in California must provide their tax returns. It used to be that they provided them at 98 days before the election. Now it's 88 days. 88 days before the election is the last day to file for a candidate. So they've, extended that time for them. And then SB 29 says the Secretary of State will establish a ballot tracking system. They have put that into place, and I'm going to talk about that later also. And then the next slide. So this bill took effect January 1st, AB 37. And what AB 37 has done is, COVID has been a problem in our state for a while, or the country. And in 2020, we made a lot of changes to elections to accommodate safety for our voters. And so this bill basically takes what happened in 2020 and extends it to the rest of our lives. So it requires us to mail a ballot to every active registered voter in Stanislaus County at least 29 days before the election. We can do it ahead of time, but we'll be processing and getting ready. So we'll probably mail the 29 days before. We have a system called remote accessibility vote by mail ballot system. And I'll go through what that actually means. It used to be when it started only for disabled or military. That has extended to all citizens. That started in 2020 also. So this bill just makes that forevermore. If you are mailing your ballot to my office and you put it in the post office, it has to be postmarked for me to accept it. And it used to have 3 days. So by Friday, I had to have them all. That was it. They've extended that to 7 days. So we have up to 7 days to receive ballots. And so I mentioned the has to be postmarked because I get probably a whole tray of mail that's postmarked the day after the election. And unfortunately by law, I cannot count those. So if you're gonna put it in the mailbox, it is not like your taxes that got picked up at midnight years ago. It has to be postmarked, so check the box when the last pickup was. And it allows us to start processing sooner. Historically, law said we could process a vote by mail ballot 10 days before the election. Now we can start the 29th day before. So as soon as we mail them, we can start processing them, and it helps us get through them faster. So what are we gonna do? How are we gonna process things in Stanislaus County? So this kind of tells you what happened in the gubernatorial recall election. Out of our 282,000 little over voters, we only had 54% turnout for the recall election. But in that 148,500, just they mailed their ballots back. And 32,000 of them put them in our official drop boxes, and 15,000 dropped them off of the vote center. I think they felt more comfortable. People were sitting there and they're going to take care of them. Only 6,000 people came and voted in person. So Stanislaus County has moved to vote by mail anyway. So this law really is not a big, huge effect on what we do in our county. So next slide. So we're going to keep doing what we've been doing since 2020. We're going to mail everybody a ballot. They have 3 ways to get it back to us. They can put it in the mail. They can use one of our official drop boxes, or you can go to a vote center. Drop boxes for our office close at 8 o'clock at night. So we go out, we have teams. It has become a whole county because we take people from all departments and we send them out and they lock up all those drop boxes. So, and when we give you those first results, those are the vote by mail ballots that we started processing on the 29th day before the election. So if the Secretary of State has their new process, sorry, I'm a little off today. Where's my ballot, sos.co.gov. That is their ballot tracking system that they have put in place. We've been using that since 2020. It's processed by a barcode on your envelope that we mail out to you. And then when you put yours back in the envelope to send it back to us, it's tracked. So it tells you that this post office has it. It got to us, what we've done when we process it. A lot of people think it's going to tell you a little more detail. It's on the envelope, not your ballot. So once we extract your ballot from the envelope, we cannot tell you anymore where it is in the system. And that's by design. Your vote is private. So once it's out of your envelope, we aren't supposed to know who you are. So, but if you use where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov, please double check your phone number, your email, and things like that. We have a lot of people who put their phone number in, they're probably using their phone, it's off by one number, and somebody else gets the text that we got their ballot. And so that person didn't mail their ballot, it becomes a whole problem. And we do a lot of research with this system. You can also go to our website, stanvote.com, and look it up right there. So I'll start trying to talk a little faster because you guys probably want to get back to work, but
We have plenty of time.
okay, good. It's a really long presentation. When we send you out your ballots, every envelope that comes back to us, you'll notice has a color code on it. We do that on purpose. That's how we know that it's for this election. We get ballots for 3 elections ago sometimes. So make sure you put it in the proper envelope for the election that we're using at the time. The little box at the top, if you make a mistake on your ballot and you fill in that box, we'll send you a new one so that you can vote the new ballot. We also do not count the one we marked that box on. Sign your envelope. So we send out ballots to every single person in your household. And I always envision husbands and wives who are at the kitchen table, they're voting their ballots and they get their envelopes backwards. And so it comes to our office and that barcode we scan in to give you credit for voting. And then we check your signature against your registration, and Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith do not sign the same. And so it doesn't go through. So we put those ballots in a box if it says wrong person signed. And every day we go through the box and we match Smith and Smith, and we have to go in and pull up the voter and say, oh, look, on this envelope, it matches Mrs. Smith, but it's Mr. Smith's envelope, and vice versa. In 2020, we noticed that roommates did this too. So of course, there weren't Smith and Smith. So we started having to go in, pull up the whole address, see all the people that lived at the address, and take the envelopes and cross-reference. Takes a long time to do that. We have 282,400 and some odd voters in Stanislaus County. That tray gets big with people mixing up their envelopes. So be careful of your envelope when you're signing it, and make sure it gets into your envelope. It's just faster for us. If you have a problem signing, you can do an X, but it has to be witnessed. And there is a hole in our envelope. This was a big controversy during the governor's recall. It is, every county develops their own envelopes. So we created our envelopes. We did put the hole in there. Usually I bring envelopes with me. It's on the edge of our envelope, so the inside flap covers it. So you cannot see how you voted. My staff and I are voters in Stanislaus County too. First thing I did in 2019 is redesign our envelope. If you look on the inside, it has the privacy marking, so you can't see through it at all, because I don't want you to see my vote either. We put the hole on the edge so that it's covered up by the inside flap, so you still can't see your vote, but it is there for the visually impaired, so they can sign their own envelope. They fill the hole, they sign next to it, and then they can vote on their own. So there's a reason for it, and in Stanislaus County, we make sure that it does still protect your vote. So vote centers. Vote centers are a new development here. They started in 2020 for the presidential general election, and they're kind of like 4 polls all put together, and a satellite office. So you can go to any vote center in our county and get the proper ballot for your area. You can go in there and vote in person. They'll pull up your voter registration, have access to a little smidgen of it, not your whole thing. But they can see if you've mailed in your vote by mail ballot already or gone someplace else and voted. So they can make sure that you're, able to vote. And then they will give you a ballot and you can vote right there in person. We did not have scanners in 2020 for the November election, but we did put them out for the recall election. We figured out how to make those safe out in the field. And so you can vote right there in person. You can drop off your ballot. They have drop boxes. You can get a replacement ballot if you made a mistake and it's too late for us to mail you a new one. They'll have 3 accessible devices at each place, and all of our required languages are there. Code says that they only have to be in certain areas, but if you can go to any vote center, you should be able to have the language. So we translate for everything that's in every location. If you need to update your registration, it can be done there. You don't have to drive all the way down to our office anymore. You can go to any vote center for that. This just kind of shows you the difference. People really like their polling places. They felt like it was home. They go in and see their friends. But at a poll, we printed the roster. It's on paper. It was printed days before the election, and they have no way of knowing if you already voted. So the vote center can provide you all these other options, where a polling place you could just go in, mark a ballot or drop one off. I mentioned that they'll each have 3 accessible devices. We also survey for all ADA compliances. And then we make sure that they have parking, ADA parking. They have, sorry, it's okay. I kind of just go over certain things anyway. And then we have to be close to public transportation. So finding locations in Stanislaus County sometimes is a little bit more difficult. We have to have 28 locations. Our goal is 30. For the upcoming June election, we'll have 29. Vote centers are open more days. I think the next slide mentions that. And so finding locations that will give you a big enough room, like the room we're in right here, is probably not actually big enough even for a vote center. You could cram it in, but it would be a little tight because you have 3 of your marking devices, plus voting booths, plus a table to check in. So finding locations that have a big enough area will allow us to be there. 6 of them are open 10 days prior to the election, 8 to 5, and then the rest of them will be open the weekend before the election. So we'll start having vote centers open Memorial weekend. So we'll be open through that holiday, and then the rest of them open that Saturday. So you can vote Saturday before the election, and then that will be in the first results because we're working down at the office on that day too. So they're all open in the mornings, 8 to 5, and then election day, 7 to 8. And then you can go in and get your vote done. So I mentioned remote accessible vote by mail. And a lot of people weren't aware that that was available. You can go to our website, get your ballot that you are entitled to vote. It has your voter information guide. It was originally created for the disabled and the military overseas voters because we mail them a ballot, but you know they're overseas and sometimes they can't get to it. Disabled, if you are visually impaired, your system will talk you through our ballot. So that's what it was created for. But during COVID, they opened it up to everybody. We have found this is very convenient for people. We had voters call from New York. I made a mistake on my ballot, or I do, or I can't find it. Well, we sent them to this website. As long as it's postmarked on election day, they can get that mailed back to us. So it allows them to go on. They have to have internet access and a printer. They can mark their ballot and then print it. And then they have the option of either mailing it back to us or dropping it in a drop box if they're here in the county. It mentions that if they lost their ballot or they're traveling, we had Channel 40 come into our office on election day, and they were doing the interview, and they were getting ready to leave, and the cameraman says, I forgot my ballot and I wanted to vote. What do I do? And I said, well, you have access to remote accessibility vote by mail, even for Sacramento County. And he was able to vote here doing their broadcast. So it's very convenient for the voter. So let's see, what does the next slide say? So to get that back to us, we prefer that you put it in the envelope we mailed you. Much more convenient for you to put it in that envelope. It's color coded, has a place for your signature, it's all ready. You still have to sign an envelope to get it back. There is an envelope in the system. I call it the Origami Envelope because you're going to print it out. It's a piece of paper. You have to fold it, tape it, all of that. I'm not sure how that actually is convenient for disabled, but that's what is available. And then, like I said, you can bring it to our office, just drop it in the mail, however you want to get back to us. The process for these, once they come in, is this is what everyone's concerned about. You can just mail in 5 of them. You can do whatever you want. Every single one of them has to go into an envelope. We do still have to check the signature. Once we receive one from a person, we're not going to count anymore. So once we get that one, that's all we count. Their signature has to verify. And everyone should know, if you put more than one ballot in an envelope, by law, we cannot count it. So historically, I have seen this with the very elderly. They want to save postage and they put them together. We can't count those ballots. So if somebody wants to put 5 ballots in that envelope, we aren't counting any of them. So it is restricted to them sending us just one. Also, that ballot is not on ballot paper. It can't be counted. So it has to be duplicated. A duplication process takes 4 people. One person reading off what they wrote, another person marking it on an official ballot, and then there's 2 people watching them. This one's watching this person, making sure they really call off what they marked, and that person is watching, making sure she's marking what they voted on. So it's a very intense process, and then we duplicate those ballots so they can be ran through the system. So what is an actual vote by mail process? I keep mentioning we check your signature. First, you're scanned into the system. We're checking your signature on your voter registration. Our first pass, people can check your signature on your most recent one. So if you went to DMV and re-registered, it's going to be your DMV signature. if you re-registered on paper or sent us anything that you had to sign, that's the signature they'll see. If that does not match, it goes to one of our managers who will double check it. They have access to all your older signatures. So in 2020, what we found is probably when people first registered, they thought, oh, it's a government document. They were real careful. Since then, they've just scribbled. And so a lot of signatures were being rejected because they were being really careful on their ballots, because now they know we're checking their signatures and it was matching the very first registration. So, so just be aware, we're looking at all of those. Then we sort them into precincts. This is not law. It's something we do to help ourselves. If we have a recount, it just makes it easier to find the ballots. And it saves money for them. Then the envelopes are opened through our machine where it cuts the sides and the top, and they pull your envelope out. They cannot see your name, and then they have to be flattened. This is the most labor-intense part of our job, because you sit and flatten all those pieces of paper. It sounds simple. Each ballot, the 2020 election, we got over 178,000 ballots back, and they were 4 cards each. So times 178 times 4. That's how many pieces of paper we sat and flattened. And then the little tab at the top has to be ripped off, or the ballot is too long to run through the machine and won't count it correctly. So they flatten and pull off tabs. Then they're put through our scanners. And once they're scanned, then we have to do adjudication. Adjudication means if you are voting for, say, a proposition, you marked yes. Your neighbor comes over and says, oh, that proposition, I just heard this. And you think, oh, I should have said no. I use propositions because yes and no. So you cross out yes, because the voter information guide tells you can do that, and you mark no. Well, our system says you have multiple votes in something that should be one. So we have to double check it and look at it. We call it voter intent. We're going to go back and give you the credit for the one that you want. A lot of times voters will circle what they want, or, you know, they tell us to. In Stanislaus County, we also check every undervote. So if you have a page on there that you did not mark anything, we're going to look at it. And the reason we do that is because if you use a really light pencil, the system may not quite pick it up. If you use a gel pen, that also kind of does weird stuff in the system. So we look at it with our eyes. If we can't tell for sure what it says, we'll go pull the ballot. We make sure that we count every single vote, so we don't want to miss any. So if it says there isn't anything marked, we're going to double check the system. Okay. This just kind of tells you all the things we're looking at when we do our signature verification. We also make sure, is there a missing signature? We're going to contact voters that didn't sign their ballot. It sends them a piece of paper. Maybe they were uncomfortable signing the outside of the envelope and sending it in. If they mark the little spoiled box, we can get them something out. Sometimes family members will tell us they're deceased. We double check those. We can't go by just somebody telling us that. Wrong person signed, I mentioned that. And is it the right election? If you put your envelope in the wrong, if you put your ballot in the wrong election envelope, we just pull those aside. That's why they're color coded. We just pull them out. And did you vote twice? So did we get 2 ballots from you? And is there a ballot in the envelope? I mentioned we also check the thicknesses and what we want. We go through training through our organization, California Association of Clerks and Election Officials. We're trained by a retired FBI agent. He's been doing this training for years. So we're looking for, and I mentioned if it's challenged, it goes to management, but we're not looking for, is your name Annette? Did you sign Ann? We'll pass that. We're looking for how you slant, how you made your letters. When we go through this training, the FBI agent even goes through, which this wouldn't happen anymore, but back in the day, he uses a gentleman's signature. He's at a bar in a hotel, and he signs the first one, and then he shows how through the night it's really scribbly, but you can still tell it's the same person. And so that's how he trains us to look at these. This just mentions that in Stanislaus County in March of 2020, 77% of our county was vote by mail. So becoming all vote by mail in the state isn't a huge lift for our county. We're used to all that. And if you get your ballot back to us sooner, then it's in the first count. Some people like that. And then Canvas. So everyone thinks Canvas, you have 30 days. What are you guys doing down there? So we do a 1% manual tally. It used to be precincts. Now we do it by batch because everything's counted in a batch. And then we do 1% of all of our vote centers also because they're counting out there also. 1% manual tally is 4 people again. You have 1 person calling. You have 2 people marking. 1, it's kind of like one, it's mesmerizing. And then you have a person watching to make sure everybody's counting the right things. And so we do that 1% tally, and then we pull up the reports from the system, and we make sure that the machines counted what we also see. And so we also finish our duplication of the remote accessibility vote by mail. Our military ballots go out in a few weeks, so they aren't actually on ballot paper either. So we have to do that. And then ballots come back damaged all the time, torn, a lot of times coffee. I'm going with Eat Your Breakfast also on there, but those can't get to the machine. We also do an audit. So if you go to a vote center, you notice they're printing you ballots. That means they have ballot paper. If I sent them 100 sheets of ballot paper and they printed 20 ballots, when it comes back, I better count 80 sheets of ballot paper. So we go out and count every single sheet. They keep a log, but we still double check it. So everything is audited that comes in and out of our office. And then the last thing we do is if you go to a vote center and you need to re-register, it's called a conditional voter registration. So it's going to go into an envelope. We're going to research that to make sure if you moved here from another county, you didn't put there first or something like that. So there's a lot of checks and balances to prevent duplicate voting also. We found in 2020 that sending everybody a ballot and having a vote center was really convenient for us. In December of 2016, when we still had 30 days to finish our canvas, we finished 1 day before our deadline. In 2018, still, when we had polls, we finished 6 days before the deadline. We get to 2020, biggest election Stanislaus County has ever seen, with over 70% of our voters voting. We finished a full 10 days prior to our 30-day deadline. So all vote by mail, when people are getting those back to us earlier, we're getting them processed. It makes our canvas period faster. So our candidates know who is the next person in our office. Election security has changed a lot. That little brown box used to be what you put your ballot in when you went to a poll. That was it. I love how people are all concerned nowadays, and that's what they used to do. So now we have our official drop boxes out there. You see the 3 locks on the front. Only people from my office have access to those locks. So if you go to Save Mart or we'll have Rayleigh's now, and you see that box in there, Save Mart and Rayleigh's cannot open it, only our office. Their chain is something permanent in the building. A lot of offices have allowed us to put eye hooks in their building. The city clerks, a lot of them have done that. So next. So these are our official boxes. So those little ones will be inside. The ones that look like Fort Knox are outside. Ones in front of our building. I think it's on the next slide. Oh, it says 24-hour surveillance. I don't allow the outside boxes to be any place that does not have camera surveillance on them. For LA County, they get picked on, but everything happens there. The very first election that we had these out there, somebody set one of their boxes on fire. It didn't have good lighting and it didn't have surveillance. So immediately we made sure everything had surveillance. So we have one of these out at Virtual Nursery in Oakdale, and they actually have surveillance on it for us. So there's a lot of protocols, and I won't tell you everything on this list. Basically, it gives you code. We have 96 days at this time of the election, and we have 72 hours at this time of the election. We go out every other day at the beginning, and then every day, and then twice a day. We pick up more often. It helps us and it helps you, because we want to get those ballots processed so we get them back to our office as fast as possible. This is what our people wear when they go out to pick up the drop boxes. Always 2-person team. We never allow voted ballots to be with 1 person. They have on their vest so you know somebody's not tampering with the box. They have a chain of custody that they have to follow. They're sworn in. And they, what else did we say? Anyway, they're identified as our people. So when they go out, they make sure that the tamper-proof seal is not tampered with. They open the box, they pull out a black bag that's in each box, and they zip it and seal it. So they're not touching your ballots out in the field. They're sealing them up on their reports. They have to put the seal number and the time that they picked up those boxes, and then they seal them back up and put another bag up. And then they bring them to the office. Once they bring them to our office, we're gonna double check that seal, that it matches the bag, and then we'll break the seal. We'll open them up, and we're gonna do the same thing as all the ones we get from the mail. We're gonna scan them in, check the signature, sort them, open, flatten, count. So when you go to a vote center, we have put in all kinds of extra security. It used to be those brown boxes that you put your envelope in. That's what we send all the supplies out to your polling place into. Now we send them out 2 carts that have locks on them. And when we first bought the carts, we brought them into the office and we ordered from several different vendors. And then we checked to see if we could get in them. I mean, it was fun. And so some carts you can pull open and reach in and pull stuff out. So we do not own those carts. And so we have made sure that we have carts that we couldn't figure out how to get into. And when they go out to your locations, they have to be connected to something permanent in the location so that you can't just roll away all of our equipment either. So it's fun. So they get the security cages, like I mentioned. Every night they have to take all the ballot paper out, lock it up. All of our laptops are locked up. All of our equipment is shut down and locked in, and then put in these security cages, the scanners and everything. So that if you go into a vote center after they've closed, if somebody happens to be able to get in there, everything's also locked in the cages. So for the voter security and the integrity of the election, we'll make sure everything's locked. At our office, we are lucky enough to be at the old B of A building. So anytime a ballot is not being processed, it is in a bank vault. So we keep all of our ballots in a bank vault. And I'm saying I need more room, but I don't want to move because it's so nice to be able to say, oh, your ballot's in the bank vault. And we only have about 3 people who can get in it. So we do not allow anyone in the bank vault except for two people. If there's voted ballots in there, no black pens, no blue pens. Ballots aren't left unattended. So if you're working on them at a table and you need to go someplace, you either have to have somebody else watching your ballots or you have to put everything away. So they're also not taken to any cubicles. So if you come to our office, everyone has all their cubicles. Ballots are either processed in the very back area on tables. We have 7 cubicles set up to do our signature verification. You can't take them back to your desk. We're mixed up with the paperwork. So ballots are always out of open areas. I talked about the 1% and duplication. That's usually done right behind our front counter. So if you're a member of the public, you can be watching that. Always trying to get people. One thing also I wanted to mention in our count room, we talked about adjudication and counting the ballots. I've extended our count room so it's longer, has windows, and then when we bought our equipment, every single station has a monitor. So I bought dual monitors and one faces out. So if you come into my office, you can stand in the lobby and you can watch from the dual monitor everything that they're doing in that count room. So we're very transparent and open, and you can see all of our processes. We do always need people. So if you know somebody who wants a seasonal part-time job, we pay $16.62 an hour. It's very seasonal. It's during the election time. We do intense training. You learn how to work in our system before we send you out and have you check in people. And it's also rewarding because you're helping. And the next slide will tell you about volunteers too. So we still do poll workers, we just call them volunteers now, and they really only help those 4 days prior to the election. So that's an option too, if you don't want something that's real, you think you're gonna have to work more. Because our volunteers work either at vote centers or in our office, and they do a lot of flattening. So, so the volunteers are out at the vote centers, they're greeting, they're helping with the accessibility equipment. I know it's long, but I wanted you to know all the process.
Yeah, super thorough. Thank you for that. And for highlighting the changes year over year. That's always really helpful.
Any questions?
We're small enough, feel free to just unmute if you would like to ask something.
No questions, but I thought that was very thorough doing and watching the process.
Oh, thank
Do you have
you.
anything?
Yeah, so.
Yes, please.
So how do you come up with $16.62
Accounting. It's a county thing.
an hour?
The reason that we have extra help too, I should mention, extra help are our part-time employees are the only ones that can check in voters at a vote center, and that's because they've been fingerprinted and not through the county background. And if they have something in their background, I don't hire them. Because you are dealing with voter registration, they're going to see your registration, and they're dealing with the ballots. So volunteers cannot do the check-in process because they've not been background checked. So
The same question. So how big is this? How do you track the actual ballots? You're talking about people who print out their ballots. How do you know? So when they do ballot marks, how is it? How is the registration office go that those ballots, the original ballots? Say if you go to the senior system and you get a bunch of ballots and you bring those into the registration office. So how does it work?
they can go anywhere and ask for your ballot. You have to give it to them. And then once they have your ballot, before they bring it to our office, they're supposed to sign the back that they're bringing it to us. And then every ballot is scanned into the system and the signature is checked on the envelope. So that's how we're tracking. If you try and bring two, we already have one, so it's already in the system. We won't check the second one. If it looks like it's tampered with, we do investigate. It's like that.
I'm just saying, I might say, I think it's fair to say something, but I say somebody did so that. So what would keep somebody from switching out ballots?
If they didn't seal their envelope, I have no way of knowing that. I always tell people, don't give your ballot to somebody you don't know.
Like your luggage.
I was just gonna say, like, you're
Keep
like.
in your possession and until it's taken by the authorities.
And so we are required to have 18 drop boxes in Stanislaus County. We have 28. I'm trying to make it as convenient as possible for people to get their ballot back to me. You don't trust the mail system. In 2020, we purposely put them in grocery stores because that's where people were going. That was it. And so we've continued those grocery stores. People really like the Brian's. But they're in a lot of grocery stores. They're in a lot of places where you would go to make it convenient for our citizens to get it to us. If you put it in that drop box, you're essentially putting it from your hand to mine because only my staff go out. And the people that are going out to the drop boxes are also part-time employees. So they've all been background checked. So we're pretty careful with how we get your ballot back to us. So we're trying to make it convenient so you're not getting something.
On election night, how often do you try to update? Is it every hour, half hour?
Law says that I have to update every 2 hours. It's a lot faster now because it used to be that I had 148 polls I was waiting for to come in. Now I have maximum 30 vote centers. So we'll only have 29. We do the same thing we used to do. We have a truck out in Turlock, so it's closer for them to drop off. So we, by law, have to do every 2 hours. We do as often as we can, and we're done a lot sooner than we used to. So because your results that we send out at 8 o'clock are all those vote by mail. So then the only thing we're waiting for are those 30 vote centers to come in.
Councilman Ricky has a question. You can come off mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we've created, like my family, my wife and I have created kind of a tradition of going to the supermarket and dropping off we go on a little walk and then we go down to the supermarket and drop off our ballots, and it's just a really neat new tradition. And I just want to applaud your efforts to kind of allow us to have that kind of experience. It's really neat.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment as well. Yeah, that's great with the kids. Lead by example. Last minute questions?
No, just a statement. My former life, you and I talked quite often. I just commend your office. I know how much work goes into it, especially, those days after election with the vote counting and people coming in, asking questions, me watching it. Great staff, great. It's a big lift, and you guys handle it really well.
Yeah, give us grace after election day. Election day for us starts at 5 a.m. It ends about 1 o'clock the next morning, and we're back at 8 o'clock to get your ballots counted. So I have a name for that week. It's not nice. And, but our goal is to get done. And so by Friday, we're pretty tired. So.
That was going to be my one question. How CPAs always take the 16th off. When do you get to have your recharge day? When does it come?
On that calendar where I showed you we're done. One thing I do now with this model of voting, we do have 2 weekends that we work. So we'll work Memorial Week and we'll work the weekend before election. But that weekend, at the end of that week, we're off Saturday and Sunday for sure. They need those 2 days to recharge. I feel like if my staff's too tired, they'll start making mistakes and we can't have that elections. So we work Monday through Friday. Tuesday is a really long day. And that Saturday, they all stay home. So we're, get that recharge and then come back and finish up.
Outside of election season, you're Monday through Friday though, right?
It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We will start probably May 15th. We'll start working 7 to 7 or 8 at night. Once we start processing ballots, it's on days.
Well, excellent.
Well, thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to come in.
Thank you.
In person, it's very nice to see you again. Always love having you. Let us know if there's anything that we can do for you. Yeah, we will definitely vote and gladly accept a sticker. Wear it proudly. Any other business or announcements? Anything from you, Trish, before we wrap up here?
2 thoughts, I guess. If you attended the soiree, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We are doing the quickest rollout ever for AgAware, the 25th anniversary. Because of COVID, we were struggling with, are we going to get, or when are we going to be able to go back in the Ag Pavilion? We got the green light less than 2 weeks ago, pretty much the day before the soiree. And so we're now rapidly trying to get sponsors and get funds generated for the FFA programs in all of our local high schools. The event is April 7th. So we're moving quick on this one. We have almost all the normal food donations lined up already. I've sent a lot of emails. What else were we talking about? Yeah. I'll have more on that next time. So that's the big one. We're really wanting to generate scholarships. Oh, yeah, and our Women in Business, that's the first of our 3 new networking programs. We have our community outreach project is now locked and loaded, and we will be taking a mini conference development program into Haven Women's Center to work with clients that have chosen to participate. We're going to give them a hands-on training for 4 hours of soft skills, how you apply for jobs, how you go through interviews, how you dress if they don't understand banking and 401ks and retirement options. We have someone who's in the field in all these categories will be presenting to them in 45-minute segments, and we're looking for sponsors for that outreach to help offset the cost of our meals. We're going to be providing them a light breakfast and a full lunch and snacks throughout. And we'll also be taking swag bag items. So we're going to leave each one of them with a go bag, basically. So anything you want to contribute, from pens to caps, or, really doesn't matter, whatever you want to contribute, or looking for that. Within the next 3 to 4 months, our rising professionals will have their outreach program, which may end up being just the Rise and Shine for a while. And then our Tech Connect, we're working on brainstorming our community outreach piece of that as well. So got a lot going on.
Excellent, great work. Any questions for Trish and her staff? Any final comments from anybody on the line? Roundtable items? So hearing and seeing none, our next GRC meeting will take place on Friday, April 15th, where Stanislaus County CEO Jody Hayes will educate us on Stanislaus 2030 initiative. So we hope to see you then.
Councilman Ricky, I have not forgotten about the invite you sent me. Oh, he just dropped off.
Okay.
Oh, no, he's still there.
Oh.
I just haven't had the bandwidth to come back around to it, but I will. There he is.
Okay, so meeting adjourned at 12:45. Thank you, everyone. Be safe.